Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Joining us on the phones right now, always a pleasure to visit with our next guest, Senior Director at the Center for the National Interest in Washington, D.C., Harry Kazianis, joining us this morning. Harry, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you? It's been too long.
It has been a while. We appreciate you joining us today. You've got a great piece out talking about coronavirus and China and North Korea and everything happening in that part of the world. Tell us a little bit about, what you learned about how the U.S. has been, looking at China and how they've, either controlled or not really controlled the coronavirus pandemic.
Well, I spoke recently, actually, to National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, and we had a really good discussion on Saturday. And basically what he told me was that the Trump administration, I think as everybody knows, is pretty disappointed in how the Chinese handled the pandemic. It's no secret that what they did is they restricted a lot of travel within China, specifically from letting people leave Wuhan and go to other cities, but at the same time allowed international travel out of Wuhan and into other parts of the world, which is a huge reason why this virus essentially went global. So what he said was that there's a lot more that the Chinese could have done, and was really disappointed and pointed the fact that this really damages their international reputation. On the flip side to that, the ramifications that this have are pretty dramatic. I mean, countries like, for example, like North Korea, which we've talked about a lot, are scrambling to try to figure out how to protect themselves from the virus. I mean, they've closed their borders and actually had to go to the Chinese, and Kim Jong-Un and members of his family have been inoculated for COVID-19 from the Chinese. So, thanks to Beijing and how they've handled this pandemic, it's an awful mess that, the United States and North Korea and all of us all over the world are trying to figure out how to handle.
It kind of, I know that the president has said in the past that, that he's upset with China about all this. Is there anything for the world to do? I'm guessing once we get the vaccinations out there, then maybe we start focusing on, how does China not maybe pay for all of this, but there's got to be some ramifications against the Chinese government, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that we as Americans need to do is we have to understand every time we buy a Chinese product. I mean, I'll give you a great example. Anybody who goes to Walmart and buys a TV called TCL, you may have seen these. They're going for Black Friday sales. They are actually subsidized by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government. So you are literally putting money into Beijing's hands when you buy a TV like that. So we need to understand there needs to be a much bigger focus on buying American-made products or anybody else's products, because every time you buy a made-in-China product, there's that chance that product is being subsidized by Beijing, and you're literally fueling their rise. So if you don't like the things that China's doing, whether it's COVID-19 and their response, whether it's all the nasty things they do diplomatically or building out their military, as Americans, there's things we can do to prevent that. And it doesn't mean going to war, regime change, or some sort of radical step. It means just buying our own products or buying the products of our friends and allies. And I've always said, if we want to get serious on China and we want to sort of blunt their economic rise, we should put a big old sticker on every Chinese product, and it should say made in China. Yeah. And let Americans decide if they want to buy that product. I think that would go a long way, and it's simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any firm grasp on how many people have died in China, how many people have gotten sick in China, or even in North Korea compared to the rest of the world?
Well, we don't really have any good figures on China right now. It seems like they've dodged the bullet. What they did early on is they did massive draconian lockdowns in lots of sections of, whether we're talking about the capital or Wuhan or other areas. And actually now, as they're trying to develop their own coronavirus vaccines, they don't even have enough people who are infected to test the efficacy of the vaccine. They've actually had to go to other parts of the world and open up research facilities in places like Russia and in the Middle East to try and test their vaccine candidates. As for North Korea, actually I asked Robert O'Brien this, and actually what he told me was interesting. The North Koreans have actually dodged a mass outbreak of COVID-19. I know a lot of people have been worried that, what happens to North Korea if they get massively infected. They've dodged the bullet there, and it's largely because they've locked their country down. They have shoot-to-kill orders if somebody tries to cross the border illegally. So, these are the things that countries have had to resort to protect themselves. And, it explains a lot of the reason why we're having such a problem here. If you love freedom and democracy, you can't lock Texas down completely and tell everybody to stay in their homes to stop it. So, that's the challenge.
Yeah, even the lockdowns that we've had here are nothing compared to the lockdowns that they were doing in China or in North Korea, where you're right. I mean, if you got caught out, you're dead.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean that was a very good point in that piece. Where can people see this this piece that you wrote and did this interview with Robert O'Brien?
Sure, you can check it out. It's a new website. It's called 1945.com.
All right. And before we let you go, Harry, we always say, I know we always talk about North Korea, and I want to get your opinion as we head into a new year and, what could possibly, it looks like is going to be a new administration, the Biden administration, if Trump is unable to succeed in the courts. There's going to be a big difference in how a Biden presidency approaches North Korea compared to how Trump approached North Korea, correct?
Yeah, and the one thing I'm hoping that Joe Biden does is, look, I think we've learned throughout history, the one thing a president can't do is just throw out everything the prior president has done if you don't like it or you don't like that person. So, look, it's pretty clear that Joe Biden does not like Donald Trump, but he can build on what Trump did with North Korea. I mean, you might not like those 3 summits that Donald Trump had, but you got to admit, we're not in a crisis with North Korea anymore. They're not blowing up nuclear weapons or testing long-range missiles that could hit the U.S. That's good, in my opinion. I mean, that's a low bar, but that is good. I think what Biden needs to do is very simple. I think he needs to say to the North Koreans, look, we want to have a working relationship with you. You obviously don't want to be dependent on China for everything that you need. And I think there is a way that, Biden could offer something like ending the Korean War, which makes a lot of sense. That gives Kim a win back home, and we can start working on arms control. I mean, look, that's what Ronald Reagan did with Mikhail Gorbachev back in the 80s. And it didn't didn't make Russia give up all their nuclear weapons, but at the same time, we slowly wound down the Cold War. History shows that could work again.
Yeah, and, again, we were sitting here 4 years ago, and there were people predicting, that, we could see a nuclear war breakout between the U.S. and North Korea, and it never happened. And it's been relatively peaceful.
Exactly. The most important thing here is to avoid these cycles, which, look, me and you lived them back in 2017 and 2018, right? When there was all this rhetoric, the North Koreans were testing all these advanced systems. The United States had to have a tough response, and up the escalation ladder we went. That's the most important thing that we need to avoid. Because, look, bottom line is the United States deals with a lot of nuclear powers: Russia, China, Pakistan, which is even far more terrifying nuclear power than North Korea. We know how to play the deterrence game. We can do the same with North Korea.
Yeah. Harry Kazianis, always a pleasure to visit with you, and I'm sure we'll be visiting quite a bit in the upcoming new year.
Sounds great. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you as well. That's Harry Kazianis, Senior Director at the Center for National Interest in Washington, D.C.